One's pretty good, and I wanted to touch on it. A lot of what I'm doing today is this because I'm not a very good programmer, and I have to be at some point in time, at least to certain degrees. I have to be able to HTLM, ball, chessboard at some point in life because somebody will pick me up from there with a CAD. Um, Here, the symmetry breaks. The sacred geometry doesn't play between chemists and mathematicians, but you know it do. This object just happened to be faster, even though this one thought it was bigger, and the rendering smoothness of the lights canvas, right? You know, if we're gonna go Unity three-dimensional canvas on a two-dimensional plane, right? I gotta change the axis, and that means I gotta get into the buttons on the side. Um, and then I'm going to play with the screen and make sure that the lighting is right. So the symmetry gets broken right off the hop about how to jump into a 2D game and make a pixel and figure out the pixel so I can make a flat plane. People are going to be on it at the scale at which they're on, and that symmetry is not going to be correct. There's obviously the subatomic level that builds into elements, which we've seen the computer programmer do with fluid dynamics, or at least the computer version of this. You're gonna make me go get him, ain't you? Well, this is going. Let's just play that.
Spontaneous symmetry breaking is a phenomenon in which a physical system that has a certain symmetry in its laws or equations of motion.
Here I've been working just some fun stuff. You know, if you're gonna do some type dark green, dark forest green inside of here, you know, it's usually just a little tiny hint before it probably goes full bury the light on you. You'll take the Schrodinger's equations, they're short, it follows this up. Just some kids pounded out paperwork. And what actually happens there in the stone mill of the Schrodinger's, I'm the cat, I could also be the radioactive isotope, I could be the dragon burning down fire. But technically what I did was 1, 2, and if anybody else can go in there, so x is squared. When you're trying to catch the Schrodinger product rule, you're going to need a lot of multivariables on that do not have this eddy current. Each individual load, unload the table. Nice little system. Come burn rock. Nice little system. Any one of those can be individualized before they lattice from a ground guy to a Sawyer and our manager. They don't scale well against what type of hardware you're using when the nodes come in. I gotta find that fluid dynamics guy here, somewhere's in here. Because Unity and Blender, that doesn't work on here. And even if it did, it would be a very complicated route about what the simple task I'm still asking it to do is, well, feeling lucky on Google or Wikipedia, or YouTube here. Here we go. Fluid dynamics fields, and he calls it FD fluid dynamics something. Very, get into they're the same symmetry, but we're doing different things. Here we know that the game starts with the symmetry of, oh, I'm creating a ball and this, and it's not practical, but anything to the simplest nature of what that is. Now we observe it, we can see 7-year cycles, you'll know it comes in. Basically, that'll start working faster than the speed of light. When I'm on the 11th year of the solar cycle, there will probably be things. There are physical things, there are economics things that both compound together, that have smaller states, and the way they interact, which makes subtle differences over the entirety of that, and you can imagine the computing. So when we get into this, this here, problems like this express themselves in physics. It's not quite an imp current or EM or magnetism, but it'll start crashing your gear somewhere in here. Like, he's having a hard time with the way the light is integrated into the plane, or why you start from what you see to the light source instead of the light source to what you see, because there's a pretty big difference in the two. And when you're starting to take that plane, this was another game, I'm watching him do this. I'm going to take both of those videos where he took that 3D plane or 3D background on a 2D game engine and started to do it. I do believe this is still Unity. It looks like it. Yep, there she is. So that works for what I'm doing. I'm not going to have any kind of differences between state 1 and state 2 at $33 on the ticker for it.
So that things get slightly blurrier with each reflection, which I think looks nice. But why stop there? Let's make the red wall reflective, and the blue wall too.
About how this math works, right? Or this web page works, right?
And the floor.
Just to drive this number is where I have to pull in the operating systems from. Here's some math that he bets A1, right? A is Unity, 1 or whatever, name and concept, HTLM and its title. Here's its body. What I'm putting in there is what information comes in. So when you get into that body section, and what makes these programs work the way they need to is a breaking of symmetry, is a Smith chart line that's going to take, well, obviously that's not in the stone mill, this 45-45, unless I approximate what those Schrodinger's equations are telling me to a new form that is more appropriate. The less is more is less here. Let's see. Oh, I already deleted it. Yeah, alright, well, that makes sense. Just trying to keep it clean. From here, though, again, somebody picked me up and was like, oh, you want to do that stuff? Well, that's fairly easy. And then I can build whatever chart. I don't need it to be Unity and the broken symmetry in that form. But then I can take and change sine 30. I can say it's a multi-world. I can say, well, the photoelectric effect here is sine 30 or phi or whatever. Sine 30 degrees would be better for a trajectory equation in the sacred geometries. There, it's like the board factories, how to handle the board stretcher pitch in yellow phase. It's a sacred geometry. There's a certain way to that multi-language, multimedia languages, whether they be the math, the pictures, drawouts. When I'm looking for Michael Da Vinci's baby statue, getting it with the Vatican over there to become the next Michelangelo's version of this, between those two, there's the homunculus. Atlas, excuse me. A lot of workers, a lot of things going on, a lot of how you could take the concepts mathematically and then reestablish, there's a way that the computers, from the radio signal to the antenna to the screen, make it so you could absolutely do this. I take this smaller measurement, X to Y. I did that in any Roman foot or classical imperial foot or millimeters. That's not going to matter IVR. There's an up, and down to it. As long as the steps are up in that, then I won't have a symmetry that violates A delta B between these Smith charts, and therefore run speeds or times, even though I don't need it from this plane of the view, it's going to be super critical. Super critical. Let's see if I can find it very quickly here. Map making and other things. There's other practical variances on it. In that 3-phase, absolutely. Which one's going to be 0, one's going to be something else. It wasn't this one, it was different. This one right here. He makes the whole thing, and it's almost just for that piece of art. Useful. If you were just the artist, you can do this from just the plane, and I'm sure you could Bob Rossi it out. He's going to do this, or she's going to do this in such a way at a speed that, you're not going to be able to hack that down unless you're really good and kind of know what you're doing. But all the square stuff is still relative. I can do that without having stole Pokemon Go all of these textures or anything, or then learning how to open up a texture to change the pixels and spread them on one of these things. Those are all not just itself. The texture is a Pokemon ball, Mewtwo, or Mew, but the other part that goes with that is the Mewtwo in that Pokemon, red there version of coding. Let's get it to a practical level, which I agree with, which is useful to get you saving files and doing things. But I never built this. And once I've taken that big leap of faith, programmed it in and everything, I didn't build it. I've already done that mechanism so many times that you get away from the ability to even start this source. As much as it's a little sketchy, you're teaching them it. you're also relying on the physical volume of time you're putting into it, or at least the procrastination levels that are up or down on that, to what we know the general timeline is to produce a sprite. And there's an art to it, but I gotta find some way to factor that out of the uncertainty in the particle slit experiment here to say, hey, that's why I would choose this one, because the probability of that particle being in that position is so high that, you know, if I shoot at it, you know, we're talking about a level so high there, which it's not, you know, it's still going to shoot through it because you miss all that, and the brain just trips you, just clink, and it kicks it loose as far as the beginner programmers inside here, because that's so advanced. Do you start 2D or do you start 3D? 3D can be practical for CAD stuff, where the 2D fields can be real practical for mathematics and some of this other variable. I don't know which way they're going to go down the rabbit hole, and they may go both and need that zero field, alpha, beta, and electron in the particle slit experiment here. Something I wanted to keep in touch with.